Dear policymaker, and any individual interested in human dignity and freedom, please consider attending Plan B's conference in Lugano on October 28th and 29th, 2022, as well as following up with any future replications in your location. Plan B is not just another Bitcoin conference. Plan B is a process to foster financial freedom, freedom of speech, social and economic developments to Lugano, as well as any other local government that wishes to replicate it. Mr. Paolo Arduino, Chief Technology Officer of Tether and Chief Sales Officer at Hole Punch, will be sharing more information about these exciting developments. If you would like to know how Hole Punch can be the intersection between geopolitics, freedom, financial evolution, dignity, and the future of internet, you can't miss this interview.
Hole Punch started a few years ago, actually. Is 5 years. It started as an idea, as a vision. I've been involved in coding development for all my life. I started coding at a really early age, and I always been excited about the web, right? The potential that internet could bring to humanity, because I was there when internet was used for mostly education. At the beginning, was a way for people to share things, to find things, right? And then it kept growing and growing, and then services started to popping up. Google started, Amazon, and then in 2004, Facebook, and so on. And so I have seen this movement from the World Wide Web in being a way to allow people to access knowledge, to a way for big tech companies to leverage all the information on the web shared by people to make several billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars per year in profit, often using this information in a way that is, in my opinion, unethical, not just in my opinion, but is quite a well known fact that not always information that you share online are well protected, well guarded by this company. So I've been always part of the underground movement and white hat movement, and this thing really struggled me as probably the biggest fight I could ever take, right? And I've definitely been part of, today I've been part of Bitfinex and Tether for a long time, but these are also challenges that excite me, because it's all about creating a new world, right? A new industry, a new way for people to have access to financial services in a more even playing field way, right? So because we, for example, in Europe are used to good financial services, but there are a ton of people around the world that struggle to have access to even the simplest of the financial services that would be having a bank account, right? So there are billions of people that struggle to have access to a bank account. If you sum that with the problem that, as I was saying, data is held by big corporations, so you end up in a situation where you don't have financial freedom and you don't have control over your data, hence freedom of speech. Because if someone else is in property or is holding your data, then you are not actually fully free, right? So long story short, a few years ago, I started realizing that this was a big call for me. I was already working with Bitfinex and Tether. And internally, we discussed about how we could tackle this problem. And I've been in contact and started working with a good friend, Matthias Boost, and he's an amazing Danish developer. And we started discussing, right, what was our vision for a more friendly, a more safe World Wide Web. So we had this evolution, as I was saying, from the Web 1 to Web 2, that is the classic web that we all know with Facebook and Google and YouTube. And then now we talk about Web 3, but we are also becoming, and we became, but also we are becoming more and more afraid of what Web 3 could become in the future, because Web 3 is in a way Web 2 masked with some crypto knowledge, some crypto services, to hide the fact that it won't change much from Web 2 in terms of ownership of data, ownership or control over your own data. And again, we are afraid that, as often happens, there are companies that are powerful, that have a lot of money, that can invest a lot of money, will always keep control over people's data. And so we were really aligned on this concept, right? So he has been working in peer-to-peer technology for a long time. I have been working in peer-to-peer technology for a long time. And so we sat together and decided to start working and creating a base layer, a set of protocols that would be free. So no tokens, nothing, right? Purely free, that we could gift to the world. And then on top of these protocols, we could create products like Keet, that is a peer-to-peer video chat application, and many others that we have in the pipeline. I think that in order to explain well Hole Punch and Keet, for example, right, that is the first application that we built on top of it, is the fact that I try to describe it in this way, or pose a question to my audience. We, in our humanity, is well equipped to go to Mars almost. And yet we think that in order to talk to our friends, talk to our family, we need a third-party server. We need someone in the middle that connect the two computers, that connect the two phones. Technology is well evolved, is extremely capable to connect two computers without having a third party in the mix, right? That third party usually is a big tech, right? Now we are on Zoom, for example, and our traffic is passing through Zoom servers. Why should be like that, right? So internet, my home bandwidth, my computer, your phone, everyone's device is capable enough to directly connect to each other without the need of a central party. The reason why we have central parties, like when we talk on Zoom, Google Meet, and so on, is that it's the only way for big corporations and tech corporations to keep making money on user data. Because if suddenly people start realizing that there are technologies that are ready for mass adoption, that are extremely scalable, but they don't need, this technology don't need a central server, a central infrastructure, then there is a big question mark on the viability of all the data centers that have been built over the last 2 decades all around the world, right? So, but that's the most exciting thing about Hole Punch. So we just proved with the most real-time application that you can imagine, that usually is peer-to-peer, is a video call application, right? Where you expect the data to be fast, real-time, high quality, and so on. We just proved that we could do the very same user experience that Zoom has. We can replicate that without any central server. So that is the power of Hole Punch. The majority of the application that we use in our own in our day-to-day life, that you use in your day-to-day life, can be built on top of Hole Punch without the need of a central server. Right? So Hole Punch, basically, if I have to summarize Hole Punch, so for, in simple terms, Hole Punch is BitTorrent. I think that many listeners would be familiar with BitTorrent as a technology. And basically, BitTorrent was this file sharing, unstoppable file sharing application, but was limited to files, right? And actually, when, to go a little bit back to how it started, basically my idea, and when talking with Matthias, our idea was why we don't take the brilliant technology of BitTorrent and we expand it, we make it better, we make it more scalable, but we apply it to live data streams, right? In our life, everything is in technology, almost everything is a live data stream. Video, audio, browsing the web, everything is live data stream. So that's what is Holepunch, is BitTorrent, so extremely scalable, unstoppable system to connect millions, hundreds of millions of people without central servers, but with the power to be able to service not just files, but everything that is on internet. So, yeah, that is actually the most exciting part, right? So, because technology has to have a use, and in my opinion, technology is something that really can free people, and is important, especially, right? Again, I'm living in Switzerland. I've been living in London for a long time, and sometimes people living in Europe, but also in US, we don't think about the luck that we have in most of the time being able to say what we want without the fear of repercussions. But the world is not always like that. Many countries have different rules on what can be said, how it should be said, and who can say that. So that is a really unfair situation to live in. And for example, but even in UAE, for example, Telegram doesn't work well. Telegram is often banned, and there are people living in Dubai that want to talk to people in Europe, and they struggle. And the issue is that all the centralized communication systems are always subject to control from big tech companies or potentially even oppressive governments. So Holepunch solves that, puts in the hands of people a system that can bypass these restrictions, and also, and more importantly, makes sure this system, Holepunch, makes sure that data remains in the hands of the people that are producing that data. So if myself and yourself have a video call on Keat and have a chat on Keat, that data remains between us without being stored on a central server belonging to someone else, right? So that is freedom, right? So you finally are free of keeping control over your data. You are finally free to say what you want to the people you care about. And that, in my opinion, is the perfect complement to Bitcoin. Bitcoin is financial freedom. So if you think about it, Bitcoin is financial freedom because you own your own wealth. You have your private key, and that gets access to your wealth. But having access to your wealth and being in full control over your own wealth is a great thing. But if you cannot say what you want to the people you want, that becomes a problem, right? So you need to be able to be fully free. You need financial freedom and freedom of speech. And if you imagine a future where, like, we are already living in a really difficult geopolitical situation, and imagine a future where that is not really far, and also in some countries already happening, government can come after you because you said something that is different from their belief. So I'm not sure if that is a world where we want to live in. I think that the world we should be living is a world where people can freely say what they think and take responsibility, of course, for that. But they should be able to communicate with the people they want without someone listening in their conversation, someone using their data for business purposes, and so on and so forth. I think that by that time, Holepunch will be internet, plain like that. So Holepunch is a really simple protocol over internet that makes internet encrypted by default, peer-to-peer, as internet was already at the beginning, right? So the beauty of the internet at the beginning was actually peer-to-peer. everyone was hosting his own server. But the more the data was growing in Web 2, people couldn't afford to store their own data. But now we are back in a situation where protocol, technology, devices, computer efficiency, and storage space are that cheap that people can go back and actually use the internet as it was supposed to be back in the day. And so in 2041, we will have people, and not just people actually, and that's probably the most exciting part. We'll have robots. We have, there are many things that are growing fast. Of course, there is crypto, but there is artificial intelligence. There is Internet of Things. There are robots. So I believe that in 2041, we will live in a world where robots will be part of our day-to-day life. Already now, fridges are buying groceries for us, right? Well, my fridge is still an old one, but usually you have these new fridges that they see that the milk is missing and they can place an order to buy some milk. And so, but imagine that multiply 1 million times, where you have actually self-driving cars, light bulbs that can buy their own electricity. You have robotic arms. You have sentient robots that can, help, the elderlies, and all that will become a reality in the next 2 decades. I'm really bullish on that. I believe, that, in every single field, we will have a really deep integration with robots and artificial intelligence. Why I'm saying this? Because you can argue that freedom of speech, right? The more the artificial intelligence will grow, the more we want to be careful of who is going to access our own data, our own content, the things we say and we do. And even more so, if you have also machines that are listening and actually are using this, are going to use internet, right? So we are going to live in such a futuristic world where privacy and access to data will be fundamental. And so I think that hole punch at that time will be the base protocol that on top of internet that will make internet private by default, encrypted by default, and can be used safely by humans and by robots. So the short development goals are delivering the first consumer applications, right? So when I talk about peer-to-peer, when I talk about encryption and all these things, is something that someone that does not do my job shouldn't really worry too much, right? So shouldn't, in a certain sense, trying to go deep into it. Because the most important thing, and I think that the things that our competitors that wanted to build, something with a similar ethos, not as technological advanced, but with the similar ethos, the issue has been always making it too complicated for the average person that doesn't work in tech to use that product. So if I make a video chat where you have to create that is difficult to install, that you have to go through many different hoops to use and so on, no one will use it. So the only persons that would benefit from that level of security and privacy would be geeks like me. But that is not what we want. We want to create an even playing field so that everyone can have the same rights, the same access to the fundamental rights of privacy and freedom of speech. So the most important thing for Hole Punch is creating really well-polished and user-friendly consumer applications. While that grows in the long term, we are seeing our role in becoming basically the substratum of the internet. So creating a system, and Hole Punch could be that system to empower existing applications, many other applications, to leverage the technology and to respect all these preconditions of privacy and freedom of speech. So Hole Punch is starting as a, let's say, small product and a small set of consumer applications, but really the medium and long term is actually empowering every single developer to build applications that can be infinitely scalable, that can be peer-to-peer, that will not have any cost in infrastructure, because that is also the beauty of Holepunch. We can replicate existing applications like Zoom, but without having a single central server, so no infrastructure. So at this point, with Holepunch, now every single developer will be in a situation that they can afford to create the most sophisticated applications, the most visionary applications, without having to worry about spending several hundreds of millions of dollars in really expensive hardware and infrastructure. That is where I see Holepunch going.